biceps are a body part that many people believe are all genetics. Most guys say you either have them or you don't. But the arms in general, and the biceps specifically, are usually a body part that need lots of individual attention, as well as specific exercises based on your own individual needs. The logic of just squat heavy for big legs or bench heavy for big pecs doesn't always apply to smaller muscle groups like the arms or even the biceps. And just telling someone that's looking to develop bigger biceps to just barbell curl a lot of weight doesn't always work well. And in many cases, more advanced strategies need to be employed. And one very important variable that often gets neglected when we're talking about bicep training is the full stretch of the target muscle. When we perform barbell curls, dumbbell curls, preacher curls, and virtually all curl variations, we generally neglect that stretch of the upper bicep insertion that ties into the shoulder, simply because the elbows are out in front of the body during these movements. You might get a great contraction doing these exercises, but ultimately the full stretch is always limited with these movements. Now, one old school training technique that was specifically designed to emphasize the stretch of the biceps is to perform dumbbell curls lying on a flat bench. This is very similar to performing dumbbell curls on an inclined bench, but the flat bench, it takes the stretch to another level by pulling the elbows all the way behind the back. This was a less heard of movement that even Arnold Schwarzenegger had in his arsenal. Although it wasn't his favorite bicep exercise, he understood the importance of incorporating a movement that fully stretched the biceps. This is a technique that's been around since the beginning of bodybuilding, and Arnold Schwarzenegger himself actually got this technique from Reg Park, and it was even more popular in his era of bodybuilding. But the movement's definitely fallen out of style today, and arguably for a justified reason. It does accomplish a full stretch of the biceps, but does so at the expense of overstressing the shoulder. And it's an exercise that should not be done very heavy, as it's one of the higher risk movements. But that doesn't mean it should be thrown out of your arsenal altogether. And if you're looking to get all the benefits this movement has to offer without the higher risk that comes with it, there's not only a much safer alternative, but also a more effective movement to stimulate the biceps that not only increases the stretch, but also creates a much better contraction. And that's the one-arm cable curl with the elbows behind the back. I personally like to call this the cable stretch curl for simplicity. To perform this movement, you set up a one-hand cable attachment on a low pulley and make sure you face away from the machine and step forward. This naturally will pull the elbow back and away from the body, creating a big stretch of the biceps. You should feel this stretch before you even start the curl. From there, you should keep the elbows locked to the sides of the body and the shoulders back while performing the curl. If you do this correctly, you should feel a deep stretch of the biceps at the bottom of the movement and a huge contraction at the top, as now you not only have the cable pulling down, but also back. This is one of the only movements that truly keeps the tension on the biceps throughout the entire range of motion. Now again, this also isn't a movement you want to go super heavy on, and it still poses a slightly higher injury risk than movements with a shorter range of motion. But if done correctly, with very tight form and good mind to muscle connection, it'll create a massive pump in the biceps, ultimately leading to more muscle growth. Just be sure to only train through a range of motion that you're personally comfortable with. And if there's any pain or discomfort, reassess your range of motion and your form and technique, and then work your way back up safely. But if your biceps are lacking and you want to develop bigger arms, I definitely recommend you throw this exercise into your training routine. And if you're looking to build more muscle using proven old school bodybuilding training methods, I highly recommend you check out my 5-day old school masking program in the description below. And as always, if you guys want to see more of the best original bodybuilding content just like this, make sure to hit subscribe.